On this episode, we discuss Between Worlds.
The number one search result for Stop, You're My Stepdaughter, and You're a Ghost.
Hey, welcome to the Flophouse. I'm Dan McCoy.
Wow, Dan McCoy coming in hot, coming in a little colder. Me, Stuart Wellington.
And here, coming in as cold as possible. Oh, it's old Elliot Kalin blowing in from the north wind. Ooh. Am I a ghost now? I was wind before, but now I appear to be a ghost. Chain rattles, chain rattles. Is the wind blowing the chains, or is it a ghost rattling the chains? Perhaps our guest today can tell us. Dan, who's our guest?
Our guest is my friend Erin Rose Chan. You may know her as the head writer for the Big Fantasy Debate on Facebook, or perhaps supervising producer for The Big Fib on Disney+. She's done comedy stuff for years and years and years, except for the parts where she wasn't doing comedy stuff. And I'm glad that we have her on, Erin Rose Chan.
Hello!
Yay!
I am
Hey!
running in here at 98.6, nice and comfy.
Not too hot, not too cold, just regular average.
Yeah.
Middle porridge.
Although I did tell Sammy yesterday, I did inform him that the inside of your mouth is a blistering 98.6 degrees, what was
My
the
mouth?
product? No, what was the product where your mouth is much, much cooler?
Why was he asking about my mouth?
Yeah, no, I was talking about Stuart's.
I also like
the
notion that it is blisteringly hot in your mouth. That the heat inside your mouth is, I assume, causing blisters within your own mouth.
This was some kind of cold mint. I forgot what it was now, but they would say it'd be like, and it would show someone with fire all around them, and they would go blah blah, as if 98.6 degrees in your mouth was the same as like a boiling pot of water.
And not your body temperature. I've never gone around and be
Not
like,
did he see a
healthy body
Did he see
temperature.
a picture of my mouth, or did you tell him a story about it?
He has a lot of questions about your mouth, Stuart. Yeah.
Papa, what temperature is Stuart's mouth?
Wow.
You met him. Yeah, that's what he sounds like.
Now, I know Erin because she actually was the coach for my bad improv group, practice group, back in the old days when I was first in New York and doing that UCB grind. And
you guys were great.
You don't have to say that anymore.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's an interesting coaching technique. If all you do is tell them they're great,
Everything is
And that's
perfect. Don't change. Don't learn or grow. You're there.
yeah, and then we reconnected years later when she was going to school at Columbia, and I was working there in a closet. And we had some good times having meals and complaining about the comedy world.
Now to explain to the listeners, Dan was working in a closet because you were working as a mop at the time, right?
Yeah.
Well, I wish I was a mop. I aspired to be one. I started out as a Swiffer, so.
I mean, I feel like a Swiffer is kind of an
She's like
upgrade
the-
against
the
a mop.
frozen-
a mop
me
was
too.
invented by
If you're
what, Mickey
wet.
Mouse?
Yeah, mop
Yeah.
was invented by Mickey Mouse with a magic spell, whereas the Swiffer was invented by J.R. Swiffer, who went on to be the father of J.R.R. Tolkien, who in turn was the father of J.K. Rowling.
Now, Stuart, I think I
Who
can.
is trash. So it.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up trash, Elliot.
Hey,
We'll just pick up the trash you brought up. I'll take it outside and throw it in a fucking garbage can.
Why don't you throw it in the broken garbage cans I have that the city of Los Angeles will be replacing on Wednesday, and I'm so excited about
No.
it.
Oh, nice
Yeah.
brag.
I don't know why I feel compelled to push back against this, but I maybe it's because I feel that I can teach Stuart a lesson about how the new ways aren't necessarily the best ways. Like, a Swiffer is a much less effective method of getting one's floor clean than a mop. Is it more convenient? Yes. Do I want to use a mop? No. But when it comes to doing its job, a mop is tops.
So
But the
that's
thing
a
about-
boss's perspective, though. From the actual device, would you rather be sweeping up dry garbage or wet garbage?
Yes, let's look at it from the artificial labor point of view. The thing with the object. What's the object thing? Well, that's why on today's Everything is Alive, we'll be talking to a mop and a Swiffer.
Yeah, and if
Hi,
I was-
my name's Marty. I'm a mop. I guess I've always been a mop. I didn't apply for the job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's me, Jimmy Swiffer. You know, Swiffers are newer than mops, but I still think we do a good job. Thank you. That was Everything is Alive.
By Jonathan Safran Foer.
Some episodes are really horrifying. That show.
Yeah, they are. There's the one. Did they ever do one about an egg? I can't remember. If it's because I would like to do an episode where it's an egg and it's like, just don't break me. Every day I live in fear that someone's gonna smash
Now,
me.
hold on. Did they ever do one about an egg? Are you talking about is this a real show or
Yeah, Everything is Alive. It's a real podcast.
what?
What?
Yeah, it's a real podcast where items are alive. You gotta listen to it sometime.
Did they do a toilet one?
I don't think they've done a toilet. They did do soap at one point. Look, you go listen to it. They do a great job.
Now, who is this podcast geared to?
People who want to anthropomorphize their objects so that they feel bad about using them for the jobs that they are meant
That's
to be
what I was
used
wondering,
for.
because like I could sort of see this for a child, but for an adult, I'm like, well, you're just lying to me and making me feel bad about the things I'm using.
No,
these
no,
things
it
for.
makes you think. It makes you think about the world from a different perspective. It's well worth it. Okay, so this is a podcast called The Flophouse. We review other podcasts that some of the co-hosts are not sure are real podcasts. Dan, that's what we do on this podcast, right?
Incorrect. This is a podcast where we watch a movie that we have been led to believe is a flop, either critically or commercially. And
Not a mop.
Then we watch it, and then we get on the inner tubes to talk about it into your ears.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's good. People don't really realize that we're actually all recording while in inner tubes on lazy rivers at different parts of the country.
Yep.
So,
We lose more microphones this way.
okay, well, I think this has been the best opening to a show maybe ever. Not just our show,
Yeah.
but in the world.
Yeah.
So we can't do any better. So let's just get on to the thing that we do.
Yeah.
Which is talk about this movie. Now, this movie is Between Worlds. It stars Nicolas Cage, and of course,
Wait a minute. What season is it, Dan? What special time of year would make us watch this movie?
yeah, well, normally,
That's right. Is that Saint Nick flying across the sky? Oh, yeah. It's Cagemas in July.
Saint Nick is flying across the sky wearing a t-shirt and shorts because he's July time.
I mean,
Nicolas
I
Cage,
feel like he's
Saint.
pretty sure he's wearing leather everything and a crazy alligator t-shirt.
yeah.
That's true, and his face is painted like a skull.
Is
Like
that
some sort of-
noise the jingling of jingle bells, or is it the jingling of chains of a ghost?
Oh, we turn to you, expert, Erin Foley Chan, to tell us. Now, you're a chain audio expert, and chains are often used to keep people in cages. So that's why we have you on today for Cages in July. Now, how did you become an expert on the sounds chains make and what is causing the chains to make those sounds?
Well, I was born into it. I didn't ask for it to happen to me. I certainly wouldn't have chosen it for myself, but I come from
Like
a
Marty
long
the Mop.
line of chain audio experts. My mama was a chain expert. My papa was a chain expert. Chain experts all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah, and the name Chan sounds like chain.
Yeah, and I am trapped in this life of chains.
Yeah.
What was I going to say?
Now, speaking of chains and cages, Nicolas Cage
Yeah,
is
we
the star
do
of the
this
movie.
thing in December called Cagemas, where we, as Stuart indicated, celebrate the life and teachings of St. Nicholas Cage. And we also do Cagemas in July, which is a thing that I believe I've forgotten about for the last couple of years. So,
And it's named after everyone's second least favorite Preston Sturges movie, Christmas in July.
I'd have to go to the list to make that judgment.
Everyone's least favorite is the one about the invention of ether gas for dentistry.
Okay,
And the second least favorite is Christmas in July.
is that a drama and not one of his comedies?
It is a drama, I think. Yeah. It's called, the Great Moment or something like that? Oh boy.
Never Been Kissed is what you're thinking of.
Yeah, never been kissed. That's
I
what
bu-
it was. Yeah, the great moment.
I both remember liking Christmas in July, and also that I remember nothing about it other than I liked it. So
Now, a lot of the Christmas in July twists on whether or not coffee makes you sleepy or helps you wake up.
that's right. There's something. It's the bunk. Something about that.
If you can't sleep, it's not the coffee, it's the bunk.
Yeah.
That's the slogan that the guy. Anyway, we're not here to
Oh,
review
this is
Christmas
great.
in July.
Is that the movie we're talking about
Sorry.
today?
Yeah, we're
'Cause
here
I
to
didn't
talk
watch
about
it.
Christmas in July.
Between Worlds.
A really fun thing about this is trying to guess in the moment what's going to get cut and what's going to make it in.
Oh, nothing gets cut until I say something that someone might take the wrong way, in which case we cut that stuff.
And then
so-
I do a little, and then we cut it out.
Yeah. So, Between Worlds, this was a big budget summer tentpole release, right?
No, actually, that links right directly into what I have in my notes here, which is the first thing you see in this film is, of course,
Oh, we should mention Dan's doing the summary this episode, so it's going to be a bumpy ride. Let's take it, Dan.
jeez.
Fasten your ear belts.
We are off-roading.
Wait till I do something wrong before saying that, Elliot. Don't.
Fair point. Fair point. Okay, so the first thing we see.
Setting me up for failure. We see a couple of production companies you've likely never heard of. I do believe I have seen these before, but probably just because we do this podcast and we have become a connoisseur of little-known production companies.
I mean, the first one is Saban Films, which of course is Chaim Saban.
Yes, okay.
Who's he's a big name.
I missed that one, but there was like Voltage and something else. I don't like.
Voltage
Yeah.
Pictures, you may know, the movie Don John, I think was one of theirs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's bad to jack off. That's the movie.
Yes, that's the one where internet porn almost ruins Joseph Gordon-Levitt's ability to interact with human women.
The thing I remember about that movie is they spent a lot of time. The one thing that movie really gets right is fellows taking off their button-down shirts to eat their Italian meals, just wearing their white
sleeveless
undershirts.
underarm shirts. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, I mean, Voltage also made The Hurt Locker. They made Dallas
wow.
Buyers Club. Yeah, but then they haven't done anything at that level for a little while.
Okay, well, now that we've finished that trip down Voltage Lane, we are introduced.
You brought it up.
We are introduced to Nicolas Cage, who in this film plays Joe. Now, Joe, this guy is a trucker with world-class greasy long hair and beard, and he wears several rings on his hands, and he has a hat that says "Turkey and the Wolf." And the first,
Is that available for purchase anywhere?
assume.
Maybe at the Voltage Pictures
Yeah.
website?
Between Worlds merch.
the first we hear Joe saying something is he owes some money to someone that he's talking to on the phone. So right away we get the sense that Joe is living the high life. He's at the top of his
As
game.
if you couldn't tell by looking at him and seeing his kind of like homeless man meets caveman aesthetic.
Yeah.
Joe is not in a good place.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough to tell whether or not he's a sleazebag or he's just a guy in a difficult position, and we'll find out that the former is the case.
So then,
Oh, I don't know about that. He's got a little bit of both.
He's a scoundrel.
I think he starts off as less of a scoundrel than he ends up.
That's true. His performance really ramps up.
He the first half of the movie, I'm like, oh, okay, Nicolas Cage is playing one of his nice guy roles. And the second half of the movie, I'm like, he's insane. He is completely gone off around the bend. But
Yeah, and right from the jump, we see this is going to be a high energy performance. Like he is in this movie. There's no question.
this is not one of his like Euro thriller roles where he's just kind of sleepwalking through it. Like he's really throwing himself.
Yeah, this
in there.
isn't Kill Chain.
and
Yes.
I would say,
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I would say that this character would be a man who has been, driven round the bend by circumstance and a sympathetic figure, but for one big factor that I think that we shall get to later.
Yeah, probably.
I'll get to it.
So cut to a big butt crack on the screen, and this is a gentleman who is working at the gas station in the 7-Eleven, and Joe comes in paying for food. He says some wacky Nicolas Cage stuff before hearing something in the restroom, a disturbance. And he goes in, and he sees this woman who is played by Franca Potente, who you may know from Run, Lola, Run, or The Bourne Identity.
Yeah.
She's the titular Run
Yeah.
of Run, Lola, Run.
And the identity in Born Identity.
Well, she's one of...
In a way.
She is one of the Runs. The other one is Run DMC, plays Run number 2.
Uh-huh.
Right, Reverend. Yeah.
It's Franco Potente, Run DMC, and Lola Montez. Finally, together in one film.
And he sees this woman being choked by a large man in the restroom, and rightfully assumes that she is being attacked, and he intervenes. He chases the man off, beats him up a little bit.
I think you mean understandably assumes.
Understandably assumes.
Because he turns out not to be right.
Well, I was in fact, thank you, Elliot. You saw that I could not think of the word, and you corrected me, even though we had passed that point. But
Yeah.
But not by very much.
yeah. Well, anyway, she is instead mad that this choking has been interrupted, and she starts yelling that Nick Cage has ruined it. And I want to say here, right off the bat, I want to say that the style of the movie is weird. The style is weird, and as the movie went on, I got more on its wavelength and vibe, and started to enjoy the style. But I can't tell whether it's just making that adjustment, or that the early scenes are done a lot worse. Like, it's hard to say in my mind, because in these early scenes, I was like, everyone's talking so strangely and talking past each other, and nothing they're saying seems to connect with anything, and the framings are strange. Like and then it all kind of resolved for me as it went along. But I don't know whether you had this experience or not.
I think the tone felt off the whole time for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I got what the movie was going for as we got into the second act, but I was taking this movie more seriously than it wanted me to, I think.
Yeah, on Wikipedia, they mentioned that the director, Maria Pallera, that says she initially wrote the film as a standard thriller, but later made it, quote, a much more surreal drama in the vein of David Lynch. And that kind of explains a lot of it to me, which is someone being like...
Are you talking about the Angelo Badalamenti, music?
Yeah.
Well, and also the fact that, Leader of the Pack will start playing. It feels like someone looked at a David Lynch movie and was like, what does he do? Okay, it's kind of weird, and there's a lot of 50s music. Okay, got it. And instead of it coming naturally from them, and even in a David Lynch movie, he'll start off the movie with something that tells you this is going to be a weird movie. The best example of that is probably in Blue Velvet, where everything looks fine, and then there's that ear with all the ants on it, and it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you exactly what this movie is right at the beginning. And she doesn't do that, and it feels like someone trying to do that kind of thing, but it not coming naturally to them.
Yeah, it feels like if this movie was made by somebody who wanted to capture the feeling of Twin Peaks, but only the James Hurley riding around on a motorcycle stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's favorite parts of Twin Peaks.
Now, Elliot, it somewhat surprises me that that Wikipedia line unlocked the mystery for you, and not the scene where they were sitting and the Angelo Badalamenti score sounded exactly like his theme for Audrey, just slightly tweaked so as not to, I guess, infringe upon his own copyright. It could not have been more Twin Peaksy, the music.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't until I read that I was like, I read that relatively early, because I was also like, what's going on with this movie? Hold on, I'm going to have to take a look and see. Because unlike you guys, I didn't get to watch it all in one sitting. Dad life.
Hashtag dad life.
Hashtag dad life.
Yeah.
Gotta watch your movies in pieces.
Yeah, but I will say that up top that there's a theme by Angelo Badalamenti that sounds like he just picked it out of his B-sides for Twin Peaks. And then there's a lot of score that sounds like people trying to do other Lynch scores. But anyway, so he saves this woman.
Now, why was she so mad that he interrupted her choking?
Well, before I get exactly to that, I want to say that she says that he's ruined it. They have a lot of shouting out in in the parking lot, where at one point she like asks him whether he has kids, and he goes, "Yeah, I got a wife and kids. Oops, they're dead." And I'm like, wow, this is a lot for you to be loading on this woman right away, Nicolas Cage.
That moment was great for me though, because from the trailer, I thought this was going to be a more understated performance from Cage, and very early on, he just went full gonzo, and I appreciated it, because then I just buckled up and I was ready for this movie to go off the rails.
Oh, and like I feel like I was like, that's a big moment from him, and then there's scenes later on where I was like, this is one of the understated moments.
During that scene, I can almost see Franca Potente, like, watching Nicolas Cage and like, okay, I got to figure out how to match this guy for this scene.
Because she's really, like, underplaying things, if in the beginning at least, in a way that I really liked, Franca Potente.
Yeah.
Like, she feels so much more real in this movie than anybody else, which it turns out is not the way the movie wants anything to happen. But but I actually liked her a lot in this.
Yeah. I mean, she's always great, and one of those people where you're like, okay, well, I wish that past a certain point her career had kept going the way it did at its peak. But anyway,
now we're all bummed.
Who's someone whose career went the way at their peak that it kept going and you didn't want it to happen?
Wait, that they kept having a peak?
Someone who kept having successes and you were like, ugh, why can't this person's career just go downhill?
Our president. Boom. Let's move on. Anyway.
Wow, topical, relevant. Let's keep going.
I'm making a stand.
So she asked for a ride to the hospital because her daughter has been in an accident while racing her motorcycle. And when she asked for this hospital ride, Cage hears some sirens, and he seems spooked by them, even though, like, the thing he said was earlier was, like, 911's already been called, like, when rescuing her. So I don't know whether he was lying about that. It seems like a weird incongruity that he suddenly is like, ooh, the fuzz, I gotta get out of here. But,
somebody filed that one under goofs.
So her daughter is in a coma at the hospital at that moment, and Franca goes into this monologue about how she almost died as a kid. And I believe this is what we saw over the credits, where she's in, like, a frozen lake. Yeah.
Over the credits, we see kind of two young girls, like adolescent girls, floating in a frozen lake, and one of them seems awake and the other one seems not.
Yeah. So what this has given her is the ability to go over to the other side, but only when she cannot breathe. Only when she is, say, being choked. And, Nicolas Cage accepts this pretty well, I think. He seems on board with it. And so we go to the hospital, and Franca's daughter starts to code, and the mom says, "Hey, Nicolas Cage, my new friend, you gotta choke me. You gotta choke me so I can go fix this." And I kind of am not sure what exactly she was supposed to have done on the other side, but it saves her daughter.
It's never clear.
Yeah.
I think she ushers the spirit back into the body. Like, that's kind of her role.
She just points.
And yeah, and so of course Nicolas Cage chokes her in a stairwell, and it feels like every time somebody gets choked, they have to get lifted up off the ground, which is, I don't know, weird.
It's like they're all being choked by superheroes.
Yeah, that is yeah. So they have.
Do you think she's pulling that move where she gets choked and then she ends up in the afterlife and she's like, "Where's a supervisor I can talk to? Excuse me." Like, Charon is about to row her daughter across the River Styx, and she's like, "Where's your manager? Can I talk to your manager, please?" And he's like,
Hades is pretty busy right now. He's got this marriage problem.
Actually, I'm the manager. Sure you are. Can I let me talk to you? Yeah, Hades is like, "Charon, can you not deal with this? I only get so much time with Persephone. Can you just take care of this?"
So as Franca is going out of the room, the nurse is talking to her and says, like, "It worked, but be careful. She's been to the other side now." And I'm like, does everyone understand the rules of this? Like, what is this nurse coming out?
I mean, this is the kind of common thing where non-white people have a stronger connection to the mystical realms than white people. And this
And
nurse kind of out of nowhere. It's a real.
It's set in the South, so there's like maybe a voodoo component. I don't know.
She did. She had an accent. We're not really sure what this nurse's deal is, why she knows that that's what Franca left the room, and she's like, well, she obviously went to get choked.
Yeah.
But like, we don't know how she knows what's going on, but she does.
It is a fairly racist stereotype way to use the character.
Well, sure, she's
like a Caribbean possibly nurse, and so of course she's all up on voodoo, I guess, and like can sense what's going on with souls. And it's and when she comes back later, and I was like, oh, so I didn't dream that moment where a random nurse was just keeping tabs on. I guess has a CB radio tuned into the Spirit Police band. But it's a.
Yeah.
There's a long line of those things.
It does seem later on when she comes back and she's like, okay, well, gotta go to the local Miss Cleo to fix this, I guess. Yeah, it was weird.
So during this time, Nicolas Cage has like a weird interaction with the daughter as she comes out of her coma. Does that happen around now, or is that later? I can't remember.
He has some visions of his dead wife, right?
Yeah, well, he has dreams that seem to mix the wife and daughter together, foreshadowing, and the daughter wakes up and immediately like takes to Nick Cage like a duck imprinting on her mother, like but with like a sex thing, not like a that was a terrible metaphor. Point is, she loves this guy right off the bat. And
did anyone else think that Nicolas Cage was psychic? Because the way that the cuts happened throughout the film, there would be a kind of sneak peek of something else that happens later flashing in front of him where he'd be like, oh, yeah, let's do that thing. And then it would actually happen. I thought that he was psychic too, that there was some kind of a connection, but then it was just the movie that was psychic and knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
I got the feeling it was one of those situations where he wasn't like psychic in general, but he had found himself like caught up in this supernatural scenario where he was bound by destiny.
Yeah, do you think there was a moment where he sat down with the filmmaker and was like, so I was in this movie next where I saw what happened next. How about, I could just do that in this one too, right?
Why don't I just wouldn't it make my character more interesting if he knew what was going to happen, and then it's like he's guilty of everything because he could have kind of stopped it or whatever. Anyway, you only have me for 5 days, and I'm kind of running out the clock with this conversation. So are you going to shoot some scenes? Or you're going to let me just kind of use up all the time you booked me for? Because then you got to pay for more time. And the director's like, I can't believe I'm talking to Nicolas Cage. This is amazing.
Yes, and so Franca gets a ride home from Nick Cage and gets a ride from Nick Cage is right. Well, yeah,
Wow.
She invites him in, and he has a quick flash, maybe he is psychic, of them having sex. And, it's like a really quick flash, and then he's like, yeah, sure, why not? So I guess that's a joke. And while she's getting stuff, Nicolas Cage keeps falling asleep and having these little visions, which I guess is because he's a trucker and he's tired all the time as a trucker. But
he's a crossroad trucker who is constantly popping caffeine pills and drinking from a flask.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a very...
I think the first thing he does after he saves Franca Potenta from being choked is he offers her, no-dos or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a normal way to interact with other people, guys.
She's also a trucker, so, I get that's just trucker etiquette, you know?
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Well, it is a...
Yeah, I don't know the culture.
alarming portrait of long-haul truckers. Probably accurate due to the forces that make them do those long hauls and have to drive so much, but frightening.
I want that to be the quote on the DVD box now from Between Worlds. Probably accurate, Dan McCoy, the Flophouse.
I just know that there's a lot of pressure on them to do, anyway. So, she gives him whiskey, and suddenly he doesn't want to have sex for a moment, but then they have very aggressive sex right away.
Yeah.
This is... you got to work up to that.
He's out of practice,
0% chance that she enjoyed a second of it.
This is by far the most graphic sex movie I think Nicolas Cage has ever made, right? Just in terms,
maybe.
Is there one you can think of where he is in his sex is more intense and vigorous, and also it is so clear that in some of the scenes he's not wearing clothes.
What about Leaving Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Leaving Las
I don't
Vegas.
remember-
I remember there was a HJ scene. There's a hand job. That's what HJ is.
Oh, okay, cool, thanks. Yeah.
I do remember the HJ. I don't the handy, but I don't remember anything else from that movie at all.
He is so like either covering a woman's body or covered by a woman's body in the scenes in this movie in a way I'm not used to seeing from
What
him.
about Zandali, Elliot? Zandali?
I've never seen Zandali.
The erotic thriller that also has Judge Reinhold in it.
I've only seen the clips on YouTube that say worst accent ever, Zandali.
And what's his face? Zach Galligan.
Now here's the thing about this movie. Here's where I started thinking, hey movie, there's a good movie here about Nicolas Cage and Franco Potente as like two people who have been really beaten down by life and are kind of grudgingly and kind of reluctantly finding love with each other and aren't quite sure what to make of it and aren't quite sure what to make of each other and are fearful of getting close with someone again. That is not what this movie is, though. This movie kind of teased me with a character study that I would have really liked, and which I think the two of them could have handled really beautifully, and then it went back into supernatural shenanigans. But for this brief moment, I was like, movie, you showed me what might have been.
Yeah.
They even addressed that Franco Potente is a German national who moved to the South, Mobile, Alabama, after marrying a Marine, and that her ex-husband's trauma drove them apart, especially when he found out that she could bring dead people back to life.
Yeah, that really threw him
Now,
off.
I got a counterpoint to what you just said, Elliot, which is the movie you just described sounds really boring, and there's no ghosts in it. So...
Okay, interesting. I mean, the movie I've described, there are many good movies about two people who've been hurt by life who are trying to find love.
They might be
Marty-
haunted, but there are no ghosts.
Exactly. Thank you. They're haunted by their pasts as opposed to haunted by a ghost that it's weird. It doesn't feel like Penelope Mitchell plays the daughter who, as we'll find out, has Joe's wife inside her. But it was almost like the ghost was doing a bad impression of Joe's wife. That was the thing. It felt really weird. It was like, does this ghost really know who she's talking to or any of those things?
Okay. Well, before we move on, though, I do want to say it's been a while since you brought it up, but with regard to the number of sex scenes in this involving Nicolas Cage, I found this from the director. There's an interview with the director. It's not that illuminating because...
Dan, everything is illuminating, though.
Yes.
I know it's called Everything is Illuminated, but come on.
Okay, anyway,
It's a reach. You get partial
I
credit.
do have this one quote I wanted to read, which goes, "We kept adding sex scenes. Like, we had Nicolas Cage with 3 different ladies in the movie, and we just had 8 or 9 sex scenes. We just kept adding them and adding them. It works pretty well, but when you see the end result of the movie, it works. But when you're telling everyone, wait, we have 2 more sex scenes here, they're going, what?" So that's a quote.
I wonder how many of those sex scenes were added day of shooting, where they were like, "Can we actually just do a reset and do another one of these?"
They're like, it's raining and we don't have any. We only have outdoor scenes to shoot. I guess strip them off, Nick. Time for you to have some
You
love.
got a dynamo like Nick Cage on set. You got to get as many sex scenes taped as you can and figure it out later.
Especially when Nicolas Cage is in, let's just say it, perfect shape.
Well,
in this
okay,
movie.
I don't want to. On the one hand, look, he's got a perfectly fine, like, middle-aged man's body, like a normal middle-aged man's body. I don't want to shame anyone, but there is, like, a funny part later on where, like, Cage is, like, flirting with Franco Potente, and he's like, "Oh, I sleep in the nude," and he's, like, taking his shirt on. He's like, "Is that a problem?" And she's, like, giggling, and she's, like, waving her hand over his entire torso. And he's like, "Yeah, this is a problem," and it's impossible not to take it as, like, yeah, Nick Cage, you don't look great in this movie compared to, like, the way we have seen you at times. Like
And also, he's also just so, like, kind of greasy and oily
Yeah, exactly.
in the movie. He
Yeah.
looks like he has never showered. I think he does take a shower in one scene, and he comes out still looking like he has never bathed.
He
ever.
does get hosed down.
yes, well,
That's
we
true.
will-
Well, that hosing down
Thoroughly
scene,
hosed down.
there's that scene. Well, when we get to it, I'll talk about it. But it reminded me of a scene in the Nicolas Cage Elijah Wood movie, The Pact? Is that what it's called? And
I think so.
where he is just doing. You just see him doing a dance to entertain his coworkers, and I'm like, this is when I like Nicolas Cage the most. When he's like just doing silly stuff to fill out a montage.
Okay, well, anyway, getting back to... We left off, Stuart was right. Franca Potente gave for the whole story about her life, and then there's a title card that says 3 days later, and Cage has stuck around. It's a little weird that there's just one title card in the movie, by the way, for such a short span of time. I hope it is done for effect, because otherwise it's a strange choice, but... He's still...
It feels like it was added later when they were watching it and they were like, would she really be coming home the next day from the hospital?
Yeah.
Let's make it through. And also, he was on his way to deliver his truckload to Biloxi and is now 3 days late to deliver, which is going to be a problem.
I did a little research. That's an under-hour drive. That drive from Mobile to Biloxi is under an hour.
He could have gone and come back easily.
There's no reason he couldn't have said, okay, you have lunch. I'll be back in a little bit after I drop this off.
Oh, that is amazing.
Stuart, I'm glad you did some geographic detecting there. That was some real Carmen Sandiego stuff.
So, okay, the daughter...
So earlier when Dan called him a long-haul trucker, I don't know if that's accurate.
You should say haul trucker.
Look,
I think that's more of a courier.
I was relying on the movie's mise-en-scene. I didn't go to the external source of a map.
It's so funny if he's like, he stops and they're like, we ordered this pizza 3 days ago. How are you just delivering it now?
Okay, the daughter's come back from the hospital. Nick is stuck around. He's putting her to...
And stunk around. You got to assume.
You have to assume, based on... Yeah. But he's putting her to bed. He says, the more you rest, the better you'll feel. And the better you feel, the more you'll heal. And I think the line is both meant to be funny and it is still dumb. And she lunges at him, saying that he's always leaving her. And she wants a kiss goodbye, and there's some driving guitar in the background.
That hard rock suddenly jumps in.
And, Franca has a little soul searching. She blames herself for her daughter falling in with a bad crowd that wants to street race, and they don't even want to, rob banks or anything to finance it.
Nope.
And...
I mean, they are drug dealers.
Oh, really? Is that why they're robbing him later on? I missed that part of it.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
That was you might have missed one of the several times when Franco referred to them as drug dealers.
Well, they seem
she
like
does steal drugs from him too.
They are the most likable characters, though. They just seem like a couple of well-meaning goofballs.
Franca Potente is clearly the most likable character in the movie. She's just a mom trying to get the job done, even if that means being strangled.
I guess I am reacting to the degree to which their actual attitude seems to clash with what danger
they are the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of this movie.
Yeah,
that's true. And you like that punk music that they're listening to in their house.
Listen to some Black Flag there.
Yeah,
that's what teenagers do. Is they listen to Black Flag and smoke weed and then dance to it.
Yeah, a little bit, with a woman who is there for a second and then walks away and we never see her again, and maybe they imagined her.
Yeah,
I love all of it. I would.
If anything, she chose the right time to leave. Maybe she was a plant. Maybe she was like the lookout. She's like, okay, they're good and high and all worked up from their Black Flag music. I'm gonna sneak out and you can go bust them in the head.
Maybe she was there to buy weed and they were like, well, first we gotta dance. And she's like, oh God, I always have to dance with Rick before I can leave.
So Cage is leaving. He's comforting Franca. He takes a swig of the prescription medicine behind her back, which was a little funny moment. And his boss is, in my opinion, extremely reasonably mad that he's 3 days late delivering this shit.
I think he is very reasonably mad. Yeah.
Does not want to pay. Yeah.
He's docking him for his time, and Nicolas Cage is acting like this is a huge injustice.
Well, he in fact says, that's dog shit. It's not even bullshit. It's dog shit. And to compound the problems, repo men come and take his truck that has all his personal stuff from his dead wife and daughter in there. Anyway, so Cage returns to the house with the ladies. Because he's got no place else to go, in the words of an officer and a gentleman. And he's walking around.
Now, who said it, the officer or the gentleman?
Check your notes. You're allowed to use notes for this part of the test.
Yeah, this is not from memory. Did you put it on? Did you actually program it into your TI-82 calculator?
Sorry.
No, it just says
I was looking at my notes and I
boobless.
skipped ahead. I skipped ahead, but I didn't really skip ahead of anything that important, like just the daughter acting weird around the house and the friends wanting to come in and see her. Although it's funny, there's a line that I like, which endeared these two doofus drug dealers to me, where
Most likable characters in the movie, says Dan.
Franca is like blaming them for everything that happened, and saying that like they suck, and the one guy doesn't realize they're talking about him, and the other guy explains like, no, she means us, and he goes, we kind of suck, but we're not that influential, and I love that. Like,
Oh wow, that's kind of mean. Oh wow, looking into a mirror, that's rough. Yeah, so this is the moment where like it seems like the movie that you guys were looking for, the idea that you were looking for, Elliot, where like it looks like Nicolas Cage has burned through his last bridge. He has nowhere else to go. He convinces Franco Potente's character to let him stay there. They have like a kind of fun scene of them sitting around smoking weed and being weird and laughing about the concept of goo goo eyes. Mm-hmm. And then the whole time the daughter Billy is watching it, making kind of weird faces. And then they start, Nicolas Cage and Franco Potente start having a very strange lovemaking session on the couch.
I have to assume this is all Nicolas Cage ad-lib. I have to assume.
And the daughter is Billy is still watching the scene, and I feel like at this point she's the audience surrogate. Like she's like,
because
what am I watching?
What is Nicolas Cage requesting specifically from Franco Potente in this scene?
I don't have my notes, Elliot.
She talked to him like Linda Blair in The Exorcist.
Right. Oh.
He's saying, say fuck me like Linda Blair. Come on, say it like in The Exorcist. Like in The Exorcist, and it's such a weird request. And again, I don't want to kink shame anybody. If your thing is pretending that I guess you're Max von Sydow and your partner is Linda Blair and she is a possessed girl and you're actually doing it with the devil, that's totally okay. But it is a strange thing to suddenly be brought in as an interest for Nicolas Cage's character.
no, I think that what you're saying is, Elliot, is it's beyond specific into like obscure and strange and
oddly foreshadowing what happens in the movie.
I was not.
Yeah, well, that too.
I was not surprised to learn that about half of this movie was improvised, dialogue-wise. So
it seems, Nicolas Cage, I think, was just. They did the thing like they covered the camera. He didn't know when it was running and when it wasn't, and he just like went wild.
Oh, I bet he would have loved that. Yeah. So he doesn't know what they're capturing and what they're not. Now, this is when Billy enters what I would refer to as her underpants portion of the movie.
I do want to. Mm-hmm. I want to read what I have in my notes, which is that she spies on them as they're fixing the truck, and then she walks aggressively, bralessly down the hall, looking at her family photos as if she doesn't recognize them. Like, look, I mean, I understand. If you're at home, you don't want to wear a bra. I get it. I do not
like,
have
it's pandemic times.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's wearing bras.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this, though, about that scene specifically. I had a strong reaction to that because the actress who plays Billy, she's not perfectly symmetrical. And I really appreciated that they just kind of let her be asymmetrical. And because that's many women's bodies are asymmetrical in that way. Their breasts are different sizes, hang different lengths, and it was like oddly really affirming and felt very body positive to me.
Is the line "they're sisters, not twins"? I can't remember what comedian said that.
I find it heartwarming by extension that you are finding something heartwarming in the movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. It was nice. This is like a really feminist movie.
I mean...
Oh yeah, right up there with Mustang, and yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Billy's behaving strangely. She's clearly not behaving like a teenage girl would. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm but there's something up. Like,
I mean, teenage girls,
thing,
I think, don't so much routinely trick drifters into seeing them nude.
Well, right. That's the very next thing is that Nicolas Cage goes to pee and sees this daughter's butt as she looks at herself nude in the mirror. And, she kind of like looks around at him and acknowledges that he's seen her, and it's disturbing. And
really-
This is
the
probably
first-
around when I started saying "stop it" to my TV over and over.
The first half of this movie really feels like it's just the daughter staring kind of menacingly, but we don't really know why, and nobody's saying specifically what's happening. They're just kind of dancing around it, and it's just her kind of giving looks.
Yeah. And what's interesting about the movie is there's no slow drip of information, really. It's like, what's this mystery? And then it seems like everybody in the movie suddenly knows, oh, yeah, his wife's ghost is in her body. Like,
Yeah.
there's no... Everyone is just kind of on board suddenly at some moment the switch is flipped,
and directly after that,
Spoiler alert.
directly after this is one of the key scenes in the films, where Nick Cage and the daughter are watching TV, where Franca Potente is like, it looks like she's got like a piglet that she's cooking. I couldn't even.
It seemed like it was some kind of maybe it was a whole rabbit.
I thought it was
like
a
some
rabbit
beast.
or
Okay.
a squirrel.
Yeah.
I thought it was a rabbit.
So she's
Some beast with the head on that has been plucked clean of skin and
Yes.
fur that's just on a big pan that she's sticking in the oven.
she's dealing with this while they're watching television, and the daughter is inappropriately stroking Nick Cage's jeans, and then throws like a blanket over his lap to disguise the hand job that we must only assume that he is receiving at that point. And he makes the world's least strong effort to get up and avoid this happening by saying, "Oh, I could help you in the kitchen." And she's like, no, it's fine. I don't need it. And he stays there, and it happens. And this is the scene that I was
He's like,
referring
well,
to
I tried.
earlier, where he's like, one could posit a film where Nicolas Cage is a sympathetic man who is brought low by the fact that his dead wife appears to them in the form of the daughter of the woman he has gotten involved with, and there's conflict over that, and like missing her and guilt over her, and then like there's a horrifying reveal that we'll get to later at the end of this movie, except for the fact that Nicolas Cage, even before he knows that this is his wife, is like, I guess I'll accept this hand job.
Dan, if you had ever seen, there's a series of short documentaries online that posit this very scenario, and if you had ever seen those, you would be impressed at his restraint in that it does not go all the way to full intercourse while his ostensible new girlfriend is cooking in the other room. You would think within clear sight, and yet in these documentaries, the other person in the room in the kitchen area never seems to notice what's happening on just behind the couch. And so these documentaries are available all over the internet. I can't remember exactly who produced them just now, but
Those documentaries, I feel like, are more an ad for kitchen islands and their ability to cover an entire person's body.
But yeah, I mean, you'd be amazed at how common this apparently is, this same scenario, because I've seen so many of these little short documentaries online.
They're on
where
lots
they-
of
where
different
they-
hubs. Lots of different hubs. Yeah.
Many hubs in which you can find these, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is also a point when I think it really strikes home that that no blankets on laps should be a more common rule.
I mean, there has
Get
even
that
if
off
they
of
were
there,
doing
FDR. What are you doing down there?
so that's what was going on in his wheelchair. I see, Dan. Okay, sure. You would think even if nothing was actually going on there, it would be weird if Nicolas Cage and Billy were sharing a blanket. It's just a weird thing.
Yeah, you gotta warm up on a cool Alabama night.
Yeah. So
You're right. His lack of resistance to this is skeevy. Yes,
yeah,
I'll give
I
you that.
mean, and again, it could be that could be the point that the movie is making, that this guy is like not a nice guy, full stop, despite the fact that he's had all these hardships in the
Well,
world.
but but
it just feels like a weird choice.
But there's a version of this movie that has no supernatural stuff in it, where he is a guy who is not a bad guy, but he has no impulse control and he makes bad decisions all the time. And he's trying to start a relationship and he keeps screwing it up because he can't get out of his own way because he's his own worst enemy. Like there are movies like that, and they're very good movies. I know you think they're boring because they don't have ghosts in them, but you know they happen.
Although
anyway,
in a way,
but that's not.
isn't a ghost just trauma, like a cycle of trauma repeating itself over and over?
Yeah, but even in the movie you're describing,
yes.
Elliot, his behavior wouldn't be
Or
would
13
not
cycles
be
of trauma.
sympathetic, is what I'm saying.
Oh no, it'd be the overall gestalt of a man who cannot stop himself from doing the wrong thing would be sympathetic, but in the moment you'd be like, come on, what are you doing? Come on, don't do that, come on. Which is, here I was like, movie, don't do this. Come on, movie. Movie, don't do this.
Yeah, stop it.
Yeah.
I do think this was a turning point where I stopped trying to root for him as a character.
That's fair. I think that's very fair. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so
This is kind of like the cheddar goblin moment of Mandy, where you're like, dude, I know something terrible happened to you, but look at the commercials that air on TV in this crazy world you live in. Like, go for it. This is. How can you be mad when there's a cheddar goblin on your TV?
I don't understand that analogy. So Nick fixes
Neither do I, Dan, and I made
the
it.
daughter's motorcycle, and meanwhile the daughter's being mean to Franca about her dad leaving. And Nick is, we cut to him swigging Jack Daniels directly out of the bottle, and he's yelling on the phone because they will not give his personal possessions back, the photos of his wife and daughter and such, because they're in the truck. And this is where we learn the backstory of their death. He went away on a job, and the wife, we presume at this point, accidentally set the house on fire with her cigarette, and killing his 5-year-old daughter as well as the wife. And I gotta say, like, throughout this movie, I like Cage's performance, and this is legitimately affecting acting from him. Like, the character is nutty and ill thought out, and the movie is wacky, but I think he is doing his best with that material to make it have some pathos.
I would always rather see Nick Cage going for it wholeheartedly than see him holding back. And like, the thing that makes this movie like watchable to me is the fact that he is just letting himself loose, rather than.
Yeah, I think
the
the two leads are pretty good. Like, they put effort in on some level.
Yeah. I think it probably helps that, like you're saying, Dan, if a lot of it was ad-libbed, then he was probably like, okay, good, then I get to be the author of this to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And that means I actually have to put energy into it. He's not playing Ghost Rider, which is ironic because he has sex with a ghost in this movie.
It is ironic. Erin, did you want to say something? Sorry, I feel like...
I have no memory of what I was going to say, but
Okay.
let's assume it was great.
I just didn't want to skip over it.
I think I was
wiped
going
out
to
of
say.
your head by
I think I was
Ghost
going to say
Rider.
that Franca Potente was putting real energy into creating a character and grounding that character in this kind of wacko world, that she was coming at it from a real place of a mother whose daughter almost died. And then Nicolas Cage took that same amount of energy and put it into his facial expressions and his voice modulations. They both were at 100% in different ways.
Yeah, that's true. So Franca goes and she pays the guy to get these memories of Nick Cage. Meanwhile, he is not upholding his end of the bargain.
Of the social contract.
The contract. He is not repaying her kindness well, because he is continues to lust over her, Franca's daughter, who is lounging at home in her underwear, coming on to him, and she calls him Majors, and he's like, how do you know my last name? I'm like, have you not told these people your last name? What?
Yeah.
He's been with them for weeks.
Yeah. But like he's freaked out because she says that she is Mary, his dead wife, confirming what we already all suspected at this point. And I don't know, like, I guess the nurse sort of talks about it being like, oh, spirits just hang out around people, and that's how this happens. But it did kind of, I don't know, I thought it was funny that, like, okay, Nicolas Cage happens to, like, walk into this girl's hospital room, and because, I guess, his dead wife has just been walking behind him for years, however long she's been dead, like, she's like, now's my chance, and jumps in. I don't know. It seems like a crazy way for this to work.
I mean, it pretty clearly is a situation where Franca Potente's character just botched her summoning roll, and instead of summoning her daughter's ghost back, she summoned the wrong ghost. Like, sometimes that happens. Like, sometimes if you fuck it up bad enough, you'll summon, like, a minor demon or something. That demon will pretend to be your daughter for a little bit. Luckily, I don't think that's the case here, unless you think Mary, his wife, was a demon. A deemer. That would be crazy.
You would have to figure out what that is.
Yeah, then you'll have to hire, like, Angel to take care of it, and, it's tough.
There was so many moments where I think for a little bit more time and, yes, a little bit more budget, they could have blown this world out in a really interesting way, where every time she goes into this kind of summoning, strangling kind of state, to see all the spirits that are around. Like, you're in a hospital, why would there just be Mary Majors there? I feel like that room would be packed with people. And to make it seem like, oh, well, I have to be sure that I'm concentrating enough to get Billy specifically to come into the body or something. It just seemed real. And also the wife looked to me a lot like Billy, and I had trouble. Like, they just seemed, they both had blonde curly hair. It just, I feel like it could have been a more interesting thing to know more about Franca Potente's gifts and what exactly she does and how she does it.
Well, I have two things to say to that. One, I imagine it is because they look so similar that Franca Potente just shoved the first blonde ghost that she saw back in her daughter's body, and it turned out to be Lydia Hearst. That's right, in her second Flophouse movie, the first being The Haunting of Sharon Tate. And two, it would have been really cool, I guess, to see, like, what the afterlife is like. And maybe there's, like, a waiting room, and, like, Sylvia Sidney is there, and she's smoking up a lot of cigarettes. And she's got to talk to, like, a guy with a little shrunken head, and, like, maybe Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, and has to, like, kind of help them to get back into the person world. And just, like, I've never seen that in a movie before.
If Mary had better, like, guidelines of what to do after she died, if there was some kind
like
of
a book,
compendium
for
that could
yeah.
guide her to what to do,
And maybe in the time that they were away, Joe's truck had been bought by some, like, yuppies from the city, and they really, like, art housed it up, and they're having, like, a party for their friends, and their daughter is there, and their daughter's, like, real goth, and maybe Michael Keaton shows up in his famous role of clean and sober. That's right, he's trying to kick the drugs from his system, but first he's got to help these ghosts.
Oh, yeah.
I both agree with what you have to say, Erin, but I also am kind of charmed by the degree to which this movie is like, okay, in a normal, if this was a horror thriller, that's what would happen. But we are only interested in this ghost thing in so much as it is an engine to drive our, like, tawdry family melodrama. Like, and it reminded me of before everything went to hell, we saw Color Out of Space at Alamo Drafthouse, and they did, like, a simulcast of, or probably a rebroadcast, actually, I don't know, of, like, Nick Cage and Richard Stanley talking about that movie, which is, like, a crazy H.P. Lovecraft movie, and Nicolas Cage was talking about how much he loves family.
Hosted by the two normalest guys ever.
But the funny thing to me was, like they're like, what attracted you to this? And he goes, well, I always have loved family dramas, or something like that. And I'm like, oh, Nicolas Cage just thinks of all these crazy things as family dramas. Like, that's what he loves.
This is normal to him.
Yeah.
He lives a very interesting life.
Anyway,
he did own pet snakes that he had to get rid of because they tried to hypnotize him. So she's all, I'm your wife, and whereas a normal person would be like, what? No, that's impossible. He's like, I'm with you 100%. Let's do it right now.
He was looking for
a certain
permission,
amount-
and she gave it to him.
Yeah, he's like, you know what? I think people will buy that I believed that, so okay, sure.
And there's a certain amount of, like, it feels like she's trying to seduce him. I mean, she's in her underpants, except for his denim shirt, and she just keeps talking about his dead child and his abusive father, and I'm like, is that what gets him going? That's crazy.
I mean, he's really into exorcist play, so possibly.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if you think he should have put up more resistance to the idea that he should have sex with the daughter of his girlfriend, you will not get an objection from me. I think he should have put up all the resistance. But I do think that there is an interesting moment of, like, she convinces him, and, like, I think he as a performance has this moment of, like, fear and emotional confusion and like just like not understanding how this could be possible, but knowing that it is, that would be really affecting if, again, he hadn't already accepted a hand job from this person in a previous scene.
I mean,
I think he even
didn't
says, he even says, "I don't deserve this," and I'm like, yeah, I don't think you do.
Yeah.
I think maybe it's a slippery slope he didn't realize he was going down when he accepted the first job.
I see.
But it just shows he hasn't seen enough of these little short documentaries that are online. It's like I kind of can't avoid them. They seem to be everywhere, but
They pop up. They're always popping
they
up.
literally pop up. Yeah, and it's like it'll be like $1 only, and I'm like, all right, I have $1 for the finest in new reality nonfiction filmmaking. Okay, sure.
Okay. Well, anyway, they hear the mom returning. Franca takes a little moment to sit in the driveway looking through the personal stuff, and then she comes in, and Cage is understandably acting very weird. And then there's
more than normal.
yeah, and then there's the great scene where. Now, I'm not entirely sure whether this is meant to have actually happened or is part of the dream sequence that follows, but Franca is watching Nick Cage and her daughter spray one another with a hose. And Nicolas Cage...
This is 100% happening.
Okay, well, Nicolas Cage has a leather pants on and a big belt buckle and sunglasses, and he's like thrusting his pelvis out while she sprays water on him, like it's like a 1980s like Playboy video ad, or like like it is crazy. These two are having some fun in the sun, splashing around with his hose.
Now, when you
and
say
he
Playboy
talks
video,
about
you mean Playboy documentary?
Yeah, a documentary about.
And he talks
a
about
bikini car
he
wash.
suggests it's a golden shower, which is a fun thing to do when he's spraying you with water. To assume that in his head he's thinking about urine.
It is. There's
Ice
so much of
cold
this.
urine.
So refreshing. I kind of wonder. It's like, is this what he thinks the character would say, or is it the kind of thing that Nicolas Cage would say while he's spraying you with a hose? And unfortunately I'll go to my grave never knowing the answer to that question. But I take this as something that's happening, and they've just totally stopped pretending around Franco pretending that they are not in a relationship, because he's so out of his mind with bliss because he's finally found his wife again. And maybe when his wife was alive before, she wasn't into being sprayed with a hose, but now she's like, I died once, what's the worst that can happen? Sure, let's spray each other with a hose.
She was all burned up in a fire. She probably wants to get sprayed with water all the time, right? Isn't that
Very
how
good
that
point.
works?
Very good point. Yeah.
That's very distressing to me for reasons I can't quite understand. No, if there's any reason to see the movie, like if there's any
for this scene.
single reason, it's this scene. Yes, look it up on
particular
YouTube if it's out there in the world. It's got to be. Anyway, so after
It's very gifable. Somebody should gif it.
yeah. After,
It was super fun to watch. It was very enjoyable to watch.
Well, this is the scene I was talking about where, so there's this, in that Nicolas Cage Elijah Wood movie, he has to go undercover as a casino worker so that they can, like, rob this casino. And there's this montage where it's just him ingratiating himself with his new coworkers, and he's telling them some story at lunch, and they're all laughing, and he's getting up and dancing for them to make them laugh. And it just looks like Nicolas Cage is having so much fun being, like, a real goofball.
Yeah.
And it's like, I wish he played more goofballs that are not tormented or tortured goofballs, but are just like goofballs.
well, it's also it feels like this scene feels like if like one of those like gross Hardee's commercials with models like suddenly turned into an ad for Crocodile Mile, like the water like spraying all over the place. Anyway, so Franca dreams that she comes upon them having sex, but wakes up clutching her chest in fear, and mom and daughter have an uncomfortable conversation where they are not very subtly fighting over Joe, and the daughter calls her dad her mom's husband. A tip-off there. And Franca tries to rekindle the fire by sucking on Nicolas Cage's finger a little bit in bed, but his mind is down the hall. And like a lot of these, like I'm reading my notes that are, obviously arranged chronologically, the traditional way to arrange notes on a story. And
you mean you didn't cut up your notes and throw them in the air and then tape them together however they fell?
But the point is, I will read like a scene that comes after another scene. I'm like, surely that scene didn't happen that quickly after the past scene. Like, it feels so disjointed reading them as like individual scenes. I'm like, because the next scene is the daughter picking up a knife and starting acting like she's gonna kill her mom, and she's saying she's gonna come between us, and it's like, wow, that comes right on the heels of this like sex dream fake out. Like, it seems like there's just no connective tissue to this movie.
Yeah, it seems like that.
Okay.
So, like, she has Franca Potente has a dream where her new boyfriend is having sex with her daughter, and then the movie kind of just rolls into like a weird series of sex montages, right?
Yes.
Well, that's...
And the mom, she goes to talk to the nurse.
Yeah, that's first what happens is Franca goes and meets with the nurse who, as we said, knows everything about soul transference, and I guess Franca has decided that she has realized what's going on, that someone else's soul is in the daughter. And meanwhile, at home, the daughter and Nick Cage are fucking in several different rooms. As Stuart says, it's clipped up in a montage that makes it clear that this is just it's happening all over the place. And Nick Cage is reading to her from a book that is called Memories by Nicolas Cage.
And I'm trying to the way I remember
at
it,
her request,
she goes read me memories. And now what I remember the name on the front of the cover being misspelled. That Nicholas is spelled with an H, but maybe I'm misremembering that. So maybe that's his nom de plume, Nicolas Cage with an H. But Dan, you said you did some research on this, and this montage is him having sex with Billy and him having sex with Mary.
Okay.
In the berth of his truck.
In the back of his truck,
yeah.
They have, so it's a little bit him and Billy in the house, and a little bit him and Mary in the truck. And this is the other reason to watch this movie, is just the sheer manic energy that Nicolas Cage is pouring into these scenes. And there's a part where they're having sex and he just goes, "Woo!" like someone does in a movie when they've just had a really powerful line of cocaine, and it's like, is that what he's like in bed? Like,
and he's reading these things that it says memories, so I assumed that this was supposed to be a memoir in the world of the movie, but it's referred to as poetry in the behind the scenes stuff that I've read. So he's
at first I thought it was a screenplay for Katsuhiro Otomo's Memories.
Yeah.
But he doesn't at any point mention about 4 space guys finding a weird ghost space station, or another guy becoming a living biological weapon, or a city that's entirely built around just feeding ammunition into guns.
No, none of that. But what is happening?
Stuart, as someone who is currently 3.5 volumes into rereading Akira, I understand exactly what you're talking about.
What is happening in the world of the film is merely that Joe is having sex while reading aloud erotic poetry by the actor Nicolas Cage, who also exists.
And we see him having sex with Mary in the berth of the truck, also reading it, that is her kink, that she has carried over into the land of the dead and back again.
I mean, the thing is that, that is kind of every guy's fantasy, is a woman who wants to hear the poetry that he's written.
Yeah.
Because often it is not the case.
So anyway, the little research I did...
Dan and Stuart do some deep soul searching after Elliot mentions that.
I mean, not poetry specifically, but I know what he's talking about.
Well, no, and I know Dan would rather have a woman who likes to listen to his mysteries, where he and his 2 best friends, that's right, Archie the cat and the ghost of his previous cat Lulu, solve mysteries.
No, I just want to I want my male ego flattered by someone pretending to give a shit when I talk about how Return of the Living Dead relates to Night of the Living Dead because of the copyright problems that John Russo had with George Romero, and but I know in my heart that this is all bullshit nonsense that no one should care about, and it is wrong to expect my partner to care about it either, just because I'm an idiot.
And for me, I just want to be able to explain the intricately crafted dungeon that I've built for 4 unlucky adventurers and all the devious traps I've set before them.
So I think that we are laying our male ego monstrousness bare on this podcast in a way that we never have before. But anyway.
I mean, from the female ego perspective, I also often give my husband things I've written to read and tell him at the outset, just tell me it's great. That's the note that I want from you.
Yeah, that's the best. Look, speaking from the other side, I love instruction. If I'm told to tell you it's great, I will tell you it's great. Nicolas Cage. This is about the memories, and this is what I found online. He was asked about reading the Nicolas Cage book Memories in this movie, and he said, "Well, I thought it was extremely funny, and anytime you can break the fourth wall, pushing the envelope in terms of traditional or narrative is an experiment worthy of trying. I had never done anything like that, to read a book by the actor who's playing the character. I was inspired by the novels of Henry Miller, Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn. I always thought they were not only sensual, but hilarious in terms of the braggadocio of Henry Miller, that he would go into great detail about his adventures in the sensual realm, and I wanted to bring a little of that kind of humor to Between Worlds with that concept." So that was the thinking
Success.
of Nick
Yeah, he
Cage,
did it.
who wrote those.
Nailed
Arousing
it.
success.
He wrote those
Out of the
poems.
park.
Looking at that same interview, Dan, just reading slightly ahead, they ask him if that was a real memoir, what anecdote would be in it, and he tells a long story about how much he loves Prince. Which is not something I ever knew about him.
That's great. Okay, so getting back to the actual plot of the story.
So this is after the very long sex montage, which again is something I never expected to see in a Nicolas Cage movie, and I don't know if it was the enjoyment that I was supposed to get from it, but I did get some kind of enjoyment from it.
Yeah, and so okay.
But it comes to a tragic end, right, Dan?
Yes, they hear Franca pulling up into the driveway. Nick Cage, as Joe, he goes, "What was that?" And Billy says, "It was the cat." And he goes, "You don't have a cat. You don't have a cat." And Franca gets mad, finding them having sex with one another, and things in the movie.
And the term is understandably mad.
Understandably mad. And the movie rapidly escalates from here. This is when it shifts into a different gear. Nick Cage.
She just spent $500 getting him his box of memories back,
Yes.
because that was what the truck boss wouldn't let him have it unless he gave $500 of the debt he owed. And I get the sense that $500 is a lot of money to these people,
Yes.
to this family.
They are not podcasters. $500 is a real chunk of change.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
super
like
easy
nothing
to come
like
by.
it is to us. And so, I feel like the insult to injury that she also just spent $500 of her hard-earned money while he was boning her daughter.
Yes. No, she is the only truly sympathetic person on screen. Let us, stipulate that.
Except for those two goofy drug dealers that you like so
I
much.
mean,
Yeah.
they provide a needed service to the community, Elliot. And so,
They are essential workers, and that's why that their illicit underground drug deal ring is allowed to keep running
right.
during the quarantine.
Nicolas Cage, Franco's mad. Nick Cage comes out to try and explain in the tiniest banana hammock underwear that is like this patterned thing. I was not able to catch the pattern. Stuart, do you know what it was? You're nodding.
I mean, it looked like some kind of a jungle cat print. It looked very cool. And
Yeah.
it fit perfectly with his black T-shirt, many bracelets and rings, and a black T-shirt with a shiny alligator face emblazoned upon it.
Anyway, he's trying to explain to Franco why he's done this, and he says the line at one point, "I'm sorry to say this, Billy is dead. That is Mary." And so I guess everything's cleared up. So they'll live happily ever after once he's...
I mean, if anything, you kind of got to applaud his effort.
I
on
mean,
this
he's
one, right?
very
Like,
direct. And she says, "You got to fix this." And he says, "What do you expect me to do? Kill my wife?" That's more of a Jimmy Stewart, but you get the idea. And right then, Billy comes out and bludgeons Franca in the head and knocks her out cold.
It's moments after Franca Potente looks at Nicolas Cage and says, "Put your fucking pants on, you're gross." And he says, like, "Why would you say that? What makes you say that?" And then the camera pulls back to give you a full view, and you're like, "Yeah, that's cool." That's an intentional joke. For the
Yeah, I think there's more. In retrospect, I think there's more actual meant jokes in this movie than I thought first watching it.
gave
Through.
her-
Oh, no, I
for
think
you.
a lot of it's intentional. Whether you can say it's successful is another thing, but...
I mean, the fact that I wasn't sure whether they meant it or not
Yes.
maybe means it's less than successful.
So anyway, we cut to Billy's doofus friends being stoned and listening to Black Flag and dancing around, as we said earlier. Billy knocks at the door to rob them. I kind of zoned out for half a second. I'm not sure what went wrong, but Nicolas Cage storms in and beats the dudes with a bat.
There's a struggle with one of the friends, and that friend is shot and killed
Yeah.
accidentally.
Hopper pen.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
missed the part where like why Nick Cage jumped in with his bat.
Oh, because they never say it outright. We're supposed to just know that they're going to rob them.
Okay.
But
Yeah, at this point, I think they're at the phase of the adventure where they just go around bonking people on the head to knock them out.
Okay.
Almost like a bonk's adventure, if you will.
unfortunately, the graphics are less than turbo.
Yeah. So the one of the doofuses gets killed, the one who says they're not that influential, and the other guy shows up with a gun to threaten Franca, like asking, like, "Hey, what the fuck's up with your boyfriend coming in with your daughter and robbing our drug stash?" Which is, a fair question, and killing someone in the mix.
Yep.
Not just someone, his best
Yeah.
friend
Yeah.
and business partner.
Meanwhile, Billy, possessed by Mary, Mary's taking Nick Cage back to their old house, where he has visions of his dead daughter and burned bodies and such. And it was very confusing to me as to what part are visions or not, or whether like half the house is burnt and half got rebuilt or half never got burnt. Like there's like a part of the house that seems totally fine that he's in, except for there's like a smoke damaged Jack-in-the-Box that he picks up.
And he focuses a lot of emotional energy on this Jack in the
Yeah.
Box.
Becomes, yes. Now, when you rent a location to film, you have to return it to the state it was in before you arrived.
Okay.
When you leave.
Okay.
And so I think it's just a lot easier to just burn the hallway when you first walk in. You just treat the foyer, make that look burned, and then just put some trash on the ground in the other rooms. Just say, well, this is general fire trash.
Okay. I thought you were
Yeah.
going to say that when you
Some
rent
debris
a space
from the fire.
it's easier to just burn half of it because then
Yeah,
you
you
can
just burn half of it 'cause
rebuild.
you have to rebuild half a house.
Save half your money.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But it
And
also
I think
like
they even find the bed that his wife supposedly burned up in or something, and it's just like pushed slightly, like the bed's made better than the one in my apartment.
Oh, nice. I don't know. I said nice.
So maybe, well, I mean, maybe he put his, I don't know
Not
who
nice.
is what is nice in that situation. Maybe
all of our
he-
friendly
maybe-
attitudes.
maybe he put the truck up as collateral for a loan to get the best bed on the market.
Yeah.
the unburnable bed.
So
Yeah, the Between Z's bed. It's called.
I wasn't sure if he was having visions of his daughter or if that was just again the movie doing these cuts, because it was never clear to me when, like, is it a vision or is it just the movie trying to be weird?
Yeah,
yeah.
I was
it's
like,
the true mission of madness.
it was hard to tell whether it was real or Maxell. It was hard to tell if she was born with it or maybe it's Maybelline. It was just it was very confusing.
Yeah, Elliot, I told you about accepting money under the table and then trying to slip these ads into the podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about. Make it your way.
Okay.
Burger King? Is that what they say?
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, back at the ranch, living drug dealer is talking to Franca, and he's like, "A ghost is taking over Billy's body? How do we find them?" And she says, "You gotta choke me."
Okay.
He's like, I'll allow it.
So, back at the burnt house, Cage, in the burned wing of the burnt house, Cage has started up a generator and puts a string of lights on to create a romantic atmosphere, and Cage is drunkenly talking about how he didn't feel he deserved her ever. He doesn't deserve anyone.
He's a mess. He's an emotional mess by this
Yes.
point.
And the Ghostbusters...
Which, to be fair, put yourself in his situation. You're a grieving widower. You're already in trouble with the guys who you have a loan on to buy your truck. And now you finally found a friend, maybe even a lover, and suddenly your wife's ghost is taking over that lover's daughter and forcing you into a life of crime. And now she's taking you back to your old house, and you're like, this is not the way I wanted her to see the house. I was supposed to clean it up when she came back to life. And, it's a lot to carry.
No, this is
right
a
now.
man who has been emotionally destroyed, understandably. Again, a little easier to sympathize but for that hand job that he accepted. Anyway, so
Dan, far be it from me to defend that action. I would not. But you know what? You got to find your small joys where you can
Yeah.
in this life, you know?
so
Even villains are the heroes of their own
Yeah.
story, right?
I mean, you got to imagine some of the villains know that they're the villains, right? Like, when a villain is like, I'm going to destroy the world, you have to know that they have to be like, well, this doesn't really benefit anyone, including me. Maybe I am the villain.
So anyway, Franca...
Like Ultron,
God.
I guess Ultron must think he's the hero, right? For robots.
Uh-huh.
But what about
That's true.
and Thanos thinks he's the hero.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
You gotta find one.
There's got to be some like Mephisto must know that he's not the hero, right?
Yeah, he's not like, yeah, check the comic book cover, dude. It says Mephisto Tales, right?
Anyway, Franca and the...
Like, you got to assume the Penguin knows that he's a bad guy, right? The Penguin isn't like, from another point of view, Batman's the villain and I'm the hero.
They try to make him really sympathetic in Batman Returns.
I mean, to a point, but nothing really forgives him
he
just biting
runs
someone's
for
nose
mayor.
off.
So
He
should
does.
I-
You're right, and no one bad can run for
Politics is a dirty game, no matter how you slice it. No matter
Why
whose
would you
nose
slice
bite off.
politics,
Set
though?
my
Like,
laptop
why are you
on
slicing
fire
up
and-
politics?
Start a new life.
Even as a kid, I remember being thrown by how quickly they dropped the mayoral race storyline in that movie.
Well, also,
But I was like,
when he's like...
we're not even going to see whether he won.
you gotta admit, I ride the city like what was it, a hawk from hell, hound from hell? I don't even remember what he says, but
I don't remember what he
it
says.
seems like, I mean, especially now in the days of Trump, but like even at the time, I always felt like, well, this is a weird, like cryptically phrased, like one sentence that he has caught the Penguin saying, and Batman broadcasting it to the people of Gotham immediately turns them against the Penguin, who they had loved moments before.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
they think it's great. Yeah.
Anyway, so
You know what Batman is in that moment? A troll.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like
Because
he
his
lives
hair
under a bridge.
He lives under a bridge. His hair is all spiky, and he's going on a world tour.
And if he spends too much time out in the sun, he'll turn to rock entirely. But that's great, because then Bilbo can sneak away.
There's a lot of different trolls that were thrown into this mix right now.
So Franca and the drug dealer show up, or as I now like to call them, the real Ghostbusters, and they have a plan at this burnt house. We don't know what it is yet. Turns out the plan is just coming in and pulling a gun on Nick Cage, but then Billy has a gun too, and she pulls it on Franca and says, "Nobody's shooting that sad bastard but me." And this is the big reveal of something that I'm sure we all kind of suspected was true, since this ghost seems like a real a cavalcade of red flags. This ghost, the way this ghost behaves, but it turns out that the reason she was worried about Nicolas Cage leaving for work all the time was that she knew that she couldn't trust herself alone, and she deliberately killed her daughter to hurt him. And like, I think she meant to kill herself too, but not burn the place down. But like,
meant to kill herself, but not ruin the equity they had built up in the house.
So the place
sure.
burned down on accident after this murder-suicide. And Cage is totally broken at this point. He hears the voice of his dead daughter, wanders off, which provides enough distraction that, I think Franca tries to go for the gun and Billy shoots her. But now, big mistake, huge. You've activated her supernatural
Because ghosts
powers.
work on commissions.
Yeah. Now that Franca is betwixt life and death, she's between worlds, if you will. She will pull the wife out of Billy and trap her in the netherworld.
Much like Obi-Wan Kenobi, now that she's struck down, she'll be more powerful than Billy could ever imagine. Or Mary, I should say.
So it turns out she has the ability to take people out of bodies as well as ushering people into them.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about it. She didn't even have to throw her through the ghost door in the Lock and Key comics.
Nope. Just says, hey, get out of here. And then suddenly she's gone.
Ghost Door Way of the Samurai. Let's see.
Yeah, ghost door entryway of the samurai.
Nicolas Cage's brain is broken at this point. He's clutching onto the jack-in-the-box, yelling Sarah. Billy wakes up, cries about her mom, who is too far gone to save, it seems. The Leader of the Pack, by I think the Shangri-Las. Is that who did Leader of the Pack?
I believe so, yes. Although I don't know if it's their version of it or if it's a cover.
Okay,
of
well,
it.
it starts
That's
playing.
actually playing.
And Cage pours gas all over himself, lights a cigarette, setting himself aflame, and stubs the cigarette out on his own burning body.
Over his
seems
heart.
Like,
Yeah.
This seems like a point where I think they put on the flame effects a little too soon. I think he was supposed to light himself by putting the cigarette out on his body, but instead he's already engulfed in flame when he does that. So I think they added the flames
I
a
think
little
it's
early.
a great like joke where he's like, "Well, I'm literally engulfed in flames, but I got to put this cigarette out."
I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to
it'll kill
burn
me.
the house down.
Yeah.
He has
Say what
zero
you-
reaction to being engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it
Yeah.
does not hurt him at all. He doesn't. It seems to be, if anything, at least it makes him feel better.
Yeah.
He's
seems
glad
to
he can
finally
feel
get it.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well, now he's
maybe
Ghost Rider.
maybe this is a guy. This is a guy who learns from his mistakes, and he's like, okay, what can I pick up from this experience? One, do not trust my wife because she does not have my best interests at heart. Let's keep that clear. Number two, if I'm ever in the situation again, do not accept that hand job under the blanket. And number
Okay,
three,
yep.
I can't let lit cigarettes just lie around because that caused the problem in the first place. So I better put it out right now. Ironically, he's on fire, so I guess the cigarette just burns up faster.
Yeah.
But it's the fire effects. It's just very funny to see how nonchalant he is with all this fire all over him.
So obviously, what should have happened is he should have then jumped into the body of the happy-go-lucky drug dealer that he had killed, and then he would get to go on an adventure later, right?
Oh, sure,
No?
sure, yeah.
No, nobody likes my idea. I mean, I just thought I'd throw it out there.
Just
I mean,
spitballing, yeah.
I'm not a
I mean,
professional writer, so I thought maybe you guys could give me some notes.
I mean, what's this adventure? What adventure is he going on in this new body?
I mean, I hadn't really thought that far ahead.
Because there's four
Maybe-
different types of primordial story. Let's go through them. Man versus
thank
man,
you.
man versus nature, goes bananas, or goes to Monte Carlo.
Okay.
So it's got to
Well-
be one of those four.
Okay. I mean, man versus man, I think we've already covered. And goes bananas, I think, already happened too, right?
But he hasn't been to Monte Carlo yet.
He hasn't been to Monte Carlo. But could he also be fighting nature in Monte Carlo?
I have to assume they have some nature there.
Yeah.
Maybe even if it's just a plant in the lobby of a casino. So Dan,
Okay,
okay.
Billy and Mike, they drive away,
Yes.
and then what happens?
Then we got a short pan over some burnt dolls, child's dolls, and a family photo with more of that Twin Peaksy music. And there's a fade to black, and then we hear it's either Joe's dad or maybe like it's supposed to be his mom's boyfriend. I don't know. It's not.
I believe it's supposed to be his dad.
Okay.
Because they mentioned earlier that his dad used to hit him.
Okay, well, we hear his dad yelling at his mom about Joe and how shitty Joe is and threatening to burn the whole house down. And Joe comes out and shoots his dad with a shotgun. And
And now here's something I want to point out here is that this is clearly a flashback. It's Joe's youth, and yet they are in an exceedingly modern kitchen. And
that created
after
a lot of problems for me, honestly, because I didn't know when it was supposed to be happening. I assumed it was a flashback, but I'm like, it doesn't really look. I mean, like, he's got a Walkman headphone, so I guess it's a long time ago, but at the same time, the house doesn't look old at all.
No, and having just my wife and I finally watched the last episode of this season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel after a long break between episodes, and there are so many scenes where they have period cars and costumes and things for no reason. I found it very refreshing that the makers of this film did not bother to make it a period-specific kitchen, and were just like, where's the kitchen of the house that we are already staying in? Let's just shoot this there. Come on. Who
Yeah.
Now, I
cares?
got a question for you three, and that is this. Is this scene in the movie so we're like, oh, that's why Joe hates when family members burn down houses, potentially killing other family members? Did the movie think that we needed a motivation for his youth for him to be upset about his wife burning down his house?
I think probably it was to show that Joe's life has been a nonstop cycle of violent trauma, but maybe they're setting it up for the prequel, Between Worlds 2, The Rise of Joe.
I think that when this scene was all finished up, they sent it over to the movie maker. They're like, and they got epilogue and prologue confused, and they're like, "Is this?" I think it goes at the end. That's what happened.
I mean,
Yeah, I do get the sense that it was supposed to be in a different part of the movie, and they ended up cutting it, and then they were like, well, this is too good to waste.
well,
Let's throw it in at the end instead of a blooper.
the thing is, like, it doesn't really illuminate anything about anything, but it has like this place of importance. So you're like, okay, this must mean something, but it's so opaque what it means. Like, we were watching it, and Audrey was like, does this mean that like his dad spirit has been following him around? Like, I'm like, oh, I never thought of that. Like, there's nothing in the movie.
What if his dad
that
had been
could
pulled
be.
into Billy?
Like, I don't know.
Oh boy.
Well, I think because they filmed the young Franca Potente scene where she's the little girl underneath the ice of the lake, and that also didn't offer anything except kind of a moody opening credit sequence.
It was a striking visual.
Sure.
You know, yeah.
It didn't
Do you
advance
think,
the plot necessarily. I feel like that they probably just filmed scenes of both of the leads as kids and then figured out where to put them later.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. Or unless maybe Nicolas Cage saw the first cut of the movie and was like, wait, so Franca gets a kid flashback and I don't get a kid flashback? Can I get a kid flashback? I'm going to pull my support of the movie. I was supposed to go on all the talk shows to promote this movie, but I don't have a kid flashback and Franca gets a kid flashback? Like, that's not fair. I'm a bigger star. I should get the bigger kid flashback. Why don't I get a kid flashback? Because I want a kid flashback. And they're like, Nick, you saw the script. Yeah, but there were no kid flashbacks in the script. Well, we didn't think we should write out the title sequence in the script. Yeah, but that's a kid flashback. Like, that's an official kid flashback. Ask anybody. Ask a professional. Ask someone off the street. They'll tell you it's a kid flashback. I want a kid flashback. Why don't I get a kid flashback? Nicolas Cage, kid flashback. Where's my kid flashback? Because I haven't gotten a kid flashback and Franca got a kid flashback. That's not fair. Kid flashbacks, everyone should get kid flashbacks or no one gets kid flashbacks. So you either give me a kid flashback or you take out Franca's kid flashback.
I
assume that's exactly what happened.
I've never gone so far from like finding something actively unfunny and irritating to not be able to stop laughing. The greatest triumph. Okay.
Mm-hmm. The greatest trick the devil ever pulled.
Final judgments is this section of the podcast where we talk about whether we thought it was a good bad movie, a bad movie, or a movie we kind of liked. Is anyone raring to go with a hot take on Between Worlds or whatever it's called?
I do not have a hot take. I think this movie is for sure good bad. It's very silly. I rewound several parts to watch them again. There were several moments where my husband and I just turned at the exact same moment and made eye contact with each other, which is always, I think, a good sign that something is very ridiculous. It's so much fun to watch. I would rewatch this movie.
I agree. I'm going to also say that it was a good bad movie. There's a lot of potential red flags for viewership, and the movie avoids them and ends up being, if there can be a silly laugh out loud movie about about a ghost that wants to seal someone's life and also a murder suicide, then this is that movie. It's I think there's some, and also if you've got a teenager and it's hard to talk to them about the act of physical lovemaking, just show them this movie and they'll finally understand what it's all about.
To that end, Elliot, like, this is a difficult movie to like unreservedly like recommend that anyone see, because it does have a lot of things that could potentially upset people depending on, what upsets you personally. I mean, like, there is suicide, there is child death, there is murder, child murder and suicide. There is like this quasi almost incestuous relationship, even though like he's not with Franca Potente. It has that structure, and even though the actress who is playing Billy is 28, she is, I believe, kind of playing younger, and Nicolas Cage is the age he is, so that is like unpleasant too.
You mean ageless and eternal?
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. May he live forever in his New Orleans crypt. But if you can accept all of those things in the space of like an overheated melodrama, which is what this is, like, I almost even, like, I'm between good, bad, and kind of liked, and the reason I even skew almost towards that is it feels like it gives you the feel, for me, of when I was a kid and I'd stay up late watching these like late 80s, early 90s thrillers, and like not even necessarily being into them because they were, even too sleazy, but like wondering like what is this world like? Why did someone make something so like sweaty and sleazy, and being fascinated
what's
by
what's
it.
Zalman King thinking?
Yes, and having like one of those movies get into like the Fly Transporter and get mixed with Wild at Heart, like I respond to it. I think I'm probably responding to it. I mean, all the language I'm using, I'm responding to it as someone who likes movies and is like approaching it through almost the window of other movies. So I don't know how it would work for someone who doesn't care as much about that stuff. But
yeah,
I mean,
if
I
you
feel
don't
like
like movies, you might not like this movie.
Yeah,
That's true.
I feel like there's
It's
already
a
a certain
good save.
there's a certain filter for watching a movie on purpose because it's bad that weeds out a lot of the people who would not be into this
That's
movie.
true.
Probably.
Stuart, what do you have to say about it?
Yeah, I'm going to go on the side of good bad. I feel like a lot of I did spend a large chunk of the movie telling my TV to stop it. But I feel like if it was in like a group setting where you're with a bunch of friends all excited to watch a bad movie, some of the creepier sex stuff would come off as funnier as opposed to as creepy as it is. With just me sitting in my apartment alone, sweaty from a hot workout.
What are you wearing, Stuart?
A nice pair of slacks and a sweatshirt.
Slacks to work out.
Yeah,
Well, it's business casual workout.
I'm a grown-up. Grown-ups wear slacks. And there's points when like I feel like if this movie, if you had swapped the daughter character with like Franca Potente's like elderly mother that she had to save, I feel like that might have been a more interesting movie, and maybe less gross. Well, definitely less gross, but I don't know. That's for Between Worlds 2, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I started listening to Ono Ross and Carrie shortly after I broke my arm, and the doctor had told me I'd never walk again.
I couldn't get my book started.
I was lost, honestly. I knew it was time to make a change.
There's something about Oh No, Ross and Carrie that you just can't get anywhere else.
They're thought leaders, discoverers, founders.
I'd call them heroes.
Ross and Carrie don't just report on fringe science, spirituality, and claims of the paranormal. They take part themselves.
They show up so you don't have to. But you might find that you want to.
My arm is better. I can walk again.
I wrote an entire book this weekend. It's terrible, but I did it.
Just go to MaximumFun.org.
Thank you, Ross and Carrie.
Ona Ross and Carrie is just a podcast. It doesn't do anything. It's just sounds you listen to in your ears. All these people are made up. Goodbye.
Hey, if you like your podcast to be focused and well-researched, and your podcast host to be uncharismatic, unhorny strangers who have no interest in horses, then this is not the podcast for you.
Yeah, and what's your deal? I'm Emily.
I'm Lisa.
Our show's called Baby Geniuses.
And its hosts are horny adult idiots. We discover weird Wikipedia pages every episode.
We discuss institutional misogyny.
We ask each other the dumbest questions, and our listeners won't stop sending us pictures of their butts.
We haven't asked them to stop, but they also aren't stopping.
Join us on Baby Geniuses
every other week on MaximumFun.org.
Okay, well, let's move into the next segment. Quickly do some sponsors for the show. The Flophouse is sponsored in part by ExpressVPN. And not only can ExpressVPN protect your privacy and security online, you can also use it to unlock movies and shows that are only available in other countries. I know we've all done it. We've all been there. We've seen that something is streaming. It's streaming in a different country. You can't get it in the U.S. Well, ExpressVPN helps you with that. Now that so many of us are stuck at home, it's only a matter of time until you run out of stuff to watch on Netflix. But you can use ExpressVPN to change your location to almost 100 different countries. And just think about all the extra libraries you'll be able to access, like Star Trek Discovery on Netflix UK or Fresh Prince of Bel-Air on Netflix Australia. It's compatible with all of your devices, phones, media consoles, smart TVs, and more, so you can watch what you want to watch on a personal device or on the big screen, wherever you are. And you can visit our special link at expressvpn.com/flop. I'll slow down for the most important part. expressvpn.com/flop, and you can get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. Support the show, watch what you want, and protect yourself with ExpressVPN. So that was me reading an ad.
Oh, wow, you did a great
And
job,
here's
Dan.
another
That's
one.
great.
You did a really good job. Is that what you wanted, was praise?
Please. Almost constantly. Here's an ad for Squarespace, which I know Elliot loves. It's a great way to...
I just have a lot to but you talk about Squarespace, and then I'll tell you what my great idea is this time.
Sure. You can create a beautiful website to promote or display your cool idea, blog or publish content, sell products and services of all kinds, and much, much more, whatever you might want to do on the internet. Squarespace does this by giving you beautiful, customizable templates created by world-class designers, everything optimized for mobile right out of the box, a new way to buy domains and choose from over 200 extensions, free and secure hosting. Hey, go to squarespace.com/flop for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use the offer code FLOP to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. I bungled a lot of that, but the important thing is to remember offer code FLOP.
Now, Dan, leaving the bungling aside, I had an idea, and I was wondering if Squarespace might be able to help me make it into a real website and a real business.
Almost certainly, Elliot, but indulge us.
Because I don't know if they're going to want to touch this one, but I'd really appreciate if they did. Okay, it's all happened to us. We've all been in this situation. You're dead, you're a ghost, you find yourself in some young lady's body, and you just want to find love with the greasy trucker that you used to be in love with when you were alive, but now it's a little awkward. What do you do? Well, that's where adultghostfinder.com comes in. Adult Ghost Finder is the place where a ghost looking for love can match up with people who are looking for love with ghosts. It's all right there in our slogan, where ghosts looking for love find people looking for love with ghosts. adultghostfinder.com. Here's the thing. You don't have to be a ghost to love a ghost, and you don't have to be a person to love a person. You could be a ghost or a person, or maybe you're the ghost of a person, or maybe you're the person of a ghost, such as in this film. It doesn't matter. We don't judge. We're just here to help ghosts find people, and ghosts find ghosts, and people find ghosts, but not people find people. That's gross. At adultghostfinder.com. You're not interested in ghosts? We're not interested in you. You know what? Get out of here, fleshling, with your anti-ghost prejudices. Not interested? You can take that elsewhere. This is for ghosts and the people who are interested in ghosts, and ghosts that are interested in people, and ghosts that are interested in ghosts. So that's adultghostfinder.com. Dan, you think that Squarespace could help me?
I think it's great, and I think that is the product or service that people will remember coming out of this ad break, and not either of the people who are paying us. So thank you for that.
ExpressVPN and Squarespace. Please go use them.
Stuart, you got a Jumbotron to read, right?
Hell yeah, I do. It goes like this. On the Discord and Rhyme podcast, a motley crew of music nerds, or perhaps a Def Leppard, that's a reference to the English band Def Leppard, discusses an album per episode. No track left out, fighting the forces of chaos in today's era of buffet listening. Our eclectic lineup of more than 50 albums includes The Kinks, Captain Beefheart, The Mountain Goats, Kate Bush, Janet Jackson, Ween, a 70s disco musical version of The War of the Worlds, and the Mega Man 2 soundtrack, because why not? Subscribe to Discord and Rhyme wherever podcasts are found. Available on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or anywhere else. Discord and Rhyme.
I am definitely going to listen to their Mega Man 2 episode because that is my favorite video game soundtrack of all time. But I've also got a Jumbotron. And it goes like this. Somewhere in Middle America, a red-headed boy lives in a town called Riverdale. On the Riverdale High AV Club, sibling hosts Megan and Ezra chronicle his life, friends, family, pets, and exploits. In weekly episodes full of goofs and a few facts, they dive into the background of all things Archie. Join them as they explore such hidden corners of the Archieverse as Cosmo the Merry Martian, Katie Keene, CW's Riverdale, and more. Tune in to the Riverdale High AV Club on all your favorite podcatchers. That's right, listen to their podcast, the Riverdale High AV Club, about all things Archie.
See,
do you think they've...
I was going to say, that sounds like my version of a Riverdale podcast. Like, I'm like, just talk to me about, like, the weird, obscure comics characters. I don't care about the sexy CW Riverdale. So give me the
Give me the sexy comic characters.
Sexy comic characters.
Give me that. I wonder if they've done an episode about that series where Jughead's dog was a superhero.
Probably not yet.
Yeah. You got to save something for season 10.
Yeah.
Hey,
We'll get to it.
I got good news, everyone. We can announce our contest winners, the winners of the prize packs for the raffle we
That is
did, the
good
charity
news.
raffle during the charity live stream. Stuart is getting out his notepad because he's the one who's going to be sending these things out, although I can just email this information.
No, make sure he gets the information this way, Dan. Don't spoon feed it to him.
Okay, I'll give him the full address of everyone who won. No, the contest winners are Robert Bain, which sounds like a mystery writer. Robert Bain.
Congratulations.
Tyler Moore. There's no Mary in front of it, just Tyler Moore. And
Congratulations.
I didn't realize they were also winning the chance to be razzed live on the show
And Stuart,
by Dan Rickles over here.
Stuart, this will be a familiar name for you, Casey Crow.
Oh shit!
Your old buddy
my college
college
roommate and oldest friend, Casey
was
Crow.
chosen at random. We could possibly,
Sure,
we could possibly do another drawing if you like, Stuart, so we can send out 4, so it's not just your friend.
Well, I'm glad that you have revealed evidence of my corruption live on the podcast. To
No,
me.
I was amazed. I was like, oh, out of the thousands of people, I recognize that name. But yeah, maybe we'll draw another one as a bonus, just to make sure everyone knows we're on the up and up.
Yeah,
But those are the congratulations.
I guess Casey won fair and square, but we'll throw one more.
I like that. Instead of Dan just discarding that one and choosing another one without telling anybody, he instead put it out on the airwaves.
I mean, it seems unfair to Casey in that situation, right? Like
it's not like Casey's never going to know.
Casey had the tip of his finger bitten off by a dog recently, Elliot. You don't think he deserves a prize?
I mean, not having known that, I'm going to have to say yes.
Okay.
Hey, Casey, you're all right.
Wow.
Congratulations, Casey.
Yeah. Congrats to all of our winners, and thank you again to everybody who donated during our big live show. And we are still working on putting together the reading of The Boy Next Door that was the prize to everybody for massively exceeding the number of donations that we expected. Thank you very much, everybody, for using your heart to show your best.
Yeah. We do have, I can't reveal anything just yet. I think people will be happy. We do have a lot of the cast in place. And it's, many beloved figures from Flophouse Land will be involved. But let's move on to letters. Right, guys? Right? Why not?
Yeah, we need them to make our words, and yet we've never
letter.
celebrated them. Letters, thanks for everything you do. From A to Z and in between, thank you for being there to spell out our words, to be in our cereals and soups, and also just for making us laugh on rainy days. Letters... Here,
Now,
this one's for you.
Wait, hold on. So, are we laughing because the letters have spelled out jokes, or are we just sort of observing letters and finding joy in that?
Dan, whatever floats your boat when you need a lift. Sometimes it's just looking at a lowercase q and being like, "Hey, what are you up to, buddy?" And sometimes it's reading some Robert Benchley and knowing that without letters, those ideas would have just died in his head, never communicated, except maybe verbally to one person right next to him. Letters, hey, you're the best.
Or a whole round table of people. Let's do letters then. These are in the form of emails,
Dan,
however.
hold on, Dan. Let's celebrate these letters and let's treat them to a good time. But I don't know if we need to do them unless if there's chemistry between you and one of the letters, Dan. Then go for it.
God damn it, Florian, last name withheld, is the first person writing. Florian writes, "Hi Dan and Elliot and Stu. The 3 investigators were a huge part of my childhood in Germany." Now this was brought up on the last episode with Hodgman and David Reese when we talked about detectives. I talked about how I liked the 3 investigators.
Really ripped from the headlines.
It is. This is one of the more new emails you'll ever hear, but I thought it was interesting.
One of the more new, or as other people might say, newer letters.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, the point is I'm giving a little backstory. I read the 3 investigators as a kid. None of the others knew about this particular series of mysteries. And if you don't listen to the minis, I have seen, fewer people do. They're really good, guys. They're a lot of fun. And they have less nonsense in them in the sense of boring stuff and more nonsense in them in the sense of nonsense.
Don't be a mini misser. Hey, it's the worst thing you can be is a mini misser. Don't miss those minis. Catch them today at the Flophouse.
Okay, well, he says they were a huge part of his childhood in Germany. The books were popular here, but the three boys from Palm Beach reached iconic status in the form of radio plays. All German kids from my generation had at least a couple of Die Drei Fratzenzeigen.
Perfect pronunciation.
That's really good.
Yeah, that's great.
Are you from Berlin?
Tapes. No, how is that? How would you say that, Stuart? You speak German, right?
I don't speak it well enough to
investigators?
repeat what I just kind of heard you say.
What's the word for investigators? Does it sound anything like Fratzenzeichen?
Well, you know how to say three.
Yep.
Dry.
Francis something.
Rather than Dre, as Dan said.
Okay, well, anyway. Had at least a couple of Die Drei Fratzenzeichen tapes or LPs to listen to on repeat. I am the same age as you. In 1997, a group of fans even started a playback theater show where they would have one of the tapes running and would lip sync and move to it in front of an audience. This was a huge success and prompted the makers of the radio plays to go on extended tours of the German-speaking countries. They are still touring to this day. Too long didn't read, you didn't make up the three investigators, but they're probably considered weird or off as evidenced by the fact that they were and are loved in Germany. Love the show, Florian. I'm sure Florian would love the floor too if he could see it. I've got a nice rug in here.
It's that old yearbook quote. Thanks to the floor for holding me up. Or thanks to the floor for always supporting me. That's another way of seeing it.
Mm-hmm. Stuart, I'm sorry that I put you on the spot as my translator.
No, it's okay. I was just trying to Google what investigator is in German, and it's not what you said. So I'm very
So it might
confused.
be a different. I mean, well, it's probably an idiomatic translation. That's not.
Yeah, that's fair.
Now, I'm surprised
There's probably a very specific German word for like three brothers who solve mysteries and are loosely related to Hitchcock.
Yeah. Bruder Frage Hitchcocken, that kind of thing, Yeah, it's I'm surprised I never heard of the idea of people lip syncing on stage to radio shows or like drama LPs, and that's a great idea. That's a really good idea.
Let's bring it over here. Let's lip sync to our own podcast on the road.
Okay, interesting.
That seems easier than us just coming up with this highly original bullshit, right?
Ironically, that would require so much more preparation than what we currently do.
But you could switch roles, which would be very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they are doing transcripts. We could do readings where we all switch parts. It's our own version of True West. Okay. This one says this. Mr. McCoy, feel free to relax on this letter, because you've already done your part. Elliot and Stuart, you've got some splaining to do. What are your erotica author aliases? The Great Dane has already unmasked himself in front of the world press and subsequently been taken into police custody. You can all split this prison sentence 3 ways, so it won't be so hard on any one of you. All you have to do is to state your full name and erotic alias into this microphone, then come out with your hands up. It's over. Big fan, Detective Jack, last name withheld. Now, I mean, this seems like the opposite of the prisoner's dilemma. You know that I will just do the time if you keep your mouth shut. And so there's no, you don't have to make any calculations. Like, the self-interested thing would be to just not say anything.
So the premise of this bit is that we are moonlighting as erotic authors, and we have to reveal what our nom de plume is.
Clarifying and returning to first principles, Stuart.
Thank you. I just want to make sure I'm up to speed. I like playing games.
I mean, also we could just ignore it and pretend it never happened. We are the judge, We make
Elliot,
the call.
do you have a nom de plume? Do you have an erotic author name?
Yeah, J.R.R. Throbbin. Sure.
Okay.
Oh, wow. You were quick with that one.
Well, I spent the time Dan was reading the letter thinking of it.
I feel like I want to pick a name that no one else in the world would pick. So I think maybe like Jackson Galaxy.
Okay.
Okay.
And Erin, let's say you were involved in this highly questionable shenanigan.
Certainly, I have been thinking the entire time of what my erotica a nom de plume would be. I think I would probably be Smolder Divine.
Oh, that's very good.
Yeah, I like it.
I mean,
that's significantly better than ours.
Nom de plume is a pretty good erotica nom de plume.
Guys, that's it for letters. Put it behind you. It's gone.
Okay.
It's dead now. You never had
Pick
any
them up
letters.
and throw them in the.
Don't look back.
Pick them up and throw them in Elliot's old trash
If you
can.
look back, it'll turn into salt. Just keep moving forward. Now we got to talk about good movies that you should watch. Or, I mean, they don't have to be good. The thing I'm thinking about recommending is not, but it is fun. So let's go with that. Movies.
Let's say movies you would recommend. Let's just call them movies we'd recommend. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't make it complex, Dan. It's fine.
I mean, you've already oversold yours quite a bit by calling it not good.
Well, I guess I'm already in it. I'm gonna say see. The only thing worse than my German is my my Brazilian. So, or I guess Portuguese, right? Is that?
Well, Portuguese
Correct.
is the language, but Brazilian,
Yes.
I think, is the wax that you're talking about, because
Yes.
they did not do a good job. That's true.
It made me sad.
Well, don't go to budget Brazilian next time, Dan. That was your mistake. Some things are worth paying full price for.
Okay, so my Portuguese is not good, but the movie I'm recommending is Super Xuxa contra o Baio Astral.
Perfect.
Which is, it translates basically to Xuxa against the down mood. And this is the Brazilian children's host, Xuxa, who had, or Xuxa, I'm again, my accent is not good, but she was huge in Brazil. This movie that she made was the number 3 most profitable Brazilian film in Brazil. The most profitable Brazilian film in Brazil, and the 3rd most popular movie in Brazil that year overall, like above things like RoboCop. So it was a huge hit there. And the best way to describe it is if Labyrinth was done with like puppets you found in, say, like a Lost and Found box, and instead of a baby being stolen, it was a dog puppet, and instead of it being kind of about like the coming of age of a young girl, it's about this Brazilian lady in hot pants like singing songs about how we need to treat the earth better and not be sad, and it's less coherent than that makes it sound, if that's possible. She's basically fighting the Satan, and it has this, as I alluded to before, the biggest crime in this world seems to be that you can't feel sad, like don't have a down mood, which is like a completely misguided thing for people's emotional development, certainly if this is for children, and very weird right now in the world as it is. But if you enjoy things that are just sort of colorful and weird and go off in directions you cannot comprehend and fathom and just let it wash over you, like, it is a good, bizarre time. It's hard to find. You probably might have to do it in a legal fashion, but it's fun.
Which is an adventure in itself.
Yeah. Sounds like something to use your ExpressVPN for.
Cover up your tracks.
Do either of you guys have a recommendation?
I do. Erin, would you like to go next?
Sure. So Between Worlds felt to me like a horror comedy. That was how I experienced it. And so another scary comedy that's more funny than scary is What We Do in the Shadows, which is a movie that I really, really enjoyed, and now I started watching the series on FX that I'm also really enjoying. So I would recommend that for people who want to laugh at something that should be scary and isn't. Also, Rhys Darby is in What We Do in the Shadows, and he's also on The Big Fib, streaming on Disney+, head written by me.
Oh, snuck a little plug in there. He's so great.
He's so great. Also, if you love Nicolas Cage's huge performance in this, then get in the Wayback Machine and watch or rewatch Vampire's Kiss. because that is a huge Nick Cage performance that just reinforces the fact that this isn't new. He's always been this way. Like, he's always been so big. He's always made such huge choices and committed 100%. So those are my 2 recommendations.
Always swinging for the fences, that guy.
He really does.
I'm going to recommend a movie, unless you would like to go next, Stuart.
Oh, let me think. No, Elliot, you can go.
Okay, thank you.
But certainly you should
this
drag
movie-
it out either way.
This movie ties into Between Worlds because it is also about a man who has very serious and at times traumatic memories tied up in a house that is not being well taken care of. And that's The Last Black Man in San Francisco, directed by Joe Talbot and written by him and Jimmy Fails, and starring Jimmy Fails. And it's about a man in San Francisco who, when he was a kid, his family lived in one of these, like, big, fancy, painted lady houses in San Francisco, and for years he's been stopping by and taking care of it against the wishes of the current owners, who think it's very strange. And when he gets the opportunity to kind of take semi-lawful possession of the house, he goes for it. But there's a lot more going on in the movie than that, and it's a lot about San Francisco as a changing city, and black lives and white lives, and friendship, and all sorts of things. I found it to be a really beautiful movie and very lyrical, and enjoyed it a lot. My wife, who's from the Bay Area and spent a lot of time in San Francisco, said it showed her a side of San Francisco she was not really familiar with, so she really enjoyed it too. So The Last Black Man in San Francisco, I'd recommend. Currently streaming on Amazon Prime, so if you have Amazon Prime, just go watch it for free. You already paid for it.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a beautiful movie.
And I'm going to recommend a Japanese zombie movie called One Cut of the Dead. I don't think I've recommended this before, but it is a movie about a movie, and it's about a bunch of filmmakers making a zombie movie, or are they trapped in a zombie movie? It's a lot of fun. It plays with ideas of low-budget filmmaking and like found footage stuff. It's a lot of it's just great. It's fun. It's a hard movie not to like.
I've been wanting to watch that one.
One Cut of the
I've heard
Dead.
a lot of really good things about it.
And speaking of Stuart recommendations, it just occurs to me we should mention this. You were on Movie Crush recently,
Yeah.
Chuck Bryant's podcast about people and their favorite movies, talking about...
and I got to talk about the greatest movie of all time, Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky, the greatest movie ever made.
And I was on it recently, too, talking about aliens, and Elliot will be on it soon, I believe.
Yes, talking about my favorite, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3.
And it just occurred to me, like, we don't often plug these other appearances other than on social media. And, would it kill us to tell people once in a while? Huh?
No, it doesn't kill anyone. But speaking of plugs, I'd like to throw out a plug now that New York is slowly and carefully reopening, at least carefully in our case. I just wanted to mention that my wife and I have a new bar in Sunset Park that has a very expansive backyard and also is currently doing to-go service. It's called Minnie's Bar, and it's lovely. And if you get a chance and you're in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, come by for a to-go cocktail. They just got a frozen drink machine, which I'm very excited about because I don't have to clean. Other people clean. It's not like we just let it get gross. That'd be crazy. Yeah. So if you get a chance, check out Minnie's Bar in Sunset Park.
Now, Erin, are you offering to-go cocktails?
If you can find me,
Okay.
and if you can afford me, then I will make you a to-go cocktail.
Okay. Well, if in lieu of that, are there other things you would like to plug?
Thank you so much for asking, Daniel. Yes. So, as I mentioned before, I was head writer for The Big Fib on Disney Plus, which is a game show for kids. It is basically, we have a 10-year-old contestant thereabouts who interviews 2 adults who both claim to be an expert in a given field, and then that child at the end of it has to guess who is the expert and who has been lying to them the entire time. So it's teaching critical thinking. It's fun. It's very silly. Rhys Darby plays a robot.
Sounds
so for younger kids, I think it's really fun. For older kids, i.e. adults, I also was head writer for the Great Fantasy Debate on Facebook, where teams of fantasy authors and comedians square off to debate issues within the fantasy world, like which fantasy world would be the best place to go on vacation, or which fantasy character would be the worst roommate, things like that. That's really fun. We had Jim Butcher on, we had Naomi Novik on, Tochi Onyebuchi, Marie Lu, Pierce Brown, and then a bunch of really talented comedians. That's really fun. And it's 10-minute episodes on Facebook, so it's like you're already on Facebook for 10 minutes. Watch my show.
It's easier to watch it than not to watch it. It's harder to avoid it. Yeah.
And Elliot, you have children, and Stuart, you like fantasy, so it seems like there's something here for everyone.
There's something for everyone.
Yeah.
And for people who like podcasts, my scripted podcast, Ellie and the Wave, is available wherever you get your podcasts. That's a funny scripted
with Natalie
dystopian
Morales.
With Natalie Morales, not the Today Show host, but the very talented comedic actor. Natalie Morales is our lead on it.
So where do we go to get the Today Show host,
great.
Natalie Morales?
I wish I had her number for you.
I mean,
but
probably the
I think you just go to the Today Show host.
Yeah,
you go to the Today Show.
I mean, I guess I could
think
just
you
stand outside the window
with a sign, and just wait.
With a sign that says, "Natalie, I have something very important to tell you. Come outside."
That always works.
That'll work.
That'll work.
Yeah, I mean, I usually would just walk around until I get some kind of an indicator on one of the NPCs I'm passing that I can start a conversation, and then I scroll down my conversation options and see if one of them might lead me to finding this Today Show host. But
now we know what Stuart's Terminator readout looks like. Okay, well, we've dithered enough. Let's thank Jordan Cowling for producing the show and editing, and thank Maximum Fun for being our network. You can see, or listen to rather, other great shows at MaximumFun.org. And we always appreciate you listening. Thank you for being with us.
You especially. You right now hearing this, you're our favorite, and we're so glad that you're listening.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's more than one person in the room, both of you are our favorites. Okay. And if there's more than two, I'm sorry, only two of you are our favorites.
If there's more than two, a broken pool cue will appear in front of you, and you have to fight for it. Okay, well, that didn't go well for an ending. Hey, thanks, Erin, for being here.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's end on pool cue death for the Flophouse. I've been Dan McCoy.
Yeah, so I guess I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin. Not sure exactly what Dan was getting at, but, that's okay. I don't always know.
Bye. I feel like talking about the movie was more fun. I had more fun talking about it than I kind of did watching it, because, as I said, I was watching it by myself, and I'm like, no, don't do this.
I think watching it with a group would be a little better. Yeah, with the right group, like not with your parents.
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned. Audience supported.